Before starting this video, I do want to give a thank you to my patrons that support the channel. And if you would like to support the channel, there are some great benefits for you in the link down below. So with that, let's get into today's video. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp So with this video, we're going to be completing the series of commander decks with the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. And with this video, we're going to be upgrading the Elven Council Precon commander deck. So kind of like all the other precons besides the Food and Fellowship, a lot of them kind of seem out of place. There's two different things going on. Galadriel is working with the will of the council, and on top of that, Gandalf is worrying about spells matter. So with this, we're going to be focusing on Galadriel, Elven-Queen, mainly because we're going to go into a little bit of Elf Tribal because it's the Elvish Council after all. We're going to be focusing on Elves. So with that said, what does Galadriel, Elven-Queen do? She has the will of the council at the beginning of your combat on your turn. If another elf entered the battlefield under your control this turn, starting with you, each player votes for Dominion or Guidance. If Dominion gets more votes, the ring tempts you, and then you put a 1/1 counter on your ring bearer. If Guidance gets more votes, or the votes is tied, you draw a card. So this is very flavorful because, of course, the White Council, we have Galadriel, we have Saruman, we have Elrond, we also have Gandalf, and some others as well. So this is very flavorful, but I do want to discuss some of the cards in the 99, mainly because I do that with every single set with different cards in the 99 so that you can strategize which direction you do want to go to. Of course, we're going with Elves. They have a little bit of the voting theme. So for some of the Elves, we do have Arrestor of the Council, Cyrodiil the Shipwright, and Elrond of the White Council. So of course, this is very political. All sorts of different Elves have different political options. I do like Arrestor mainly because whenever a player finishes voting, each opponent who voted for a choice you voted for creates a treasure token. You scry X, where X is the number of opponents who voted for a choice you didn't vote for, and you draw a card. So with this deck, there's going to be a lot of voting left and right. Almost feels like a presidential campaign. But I did want to mention these cards mainly because, of course, we're going to be voting left and right. We want to make a decision of what to do, and also it's fun to have other opponents have that same option as well. So with those cards mentioned, I did want to discuss another card with the Song of Arendil. The saga has 3 different lore chapters. Scry 2, then draw 2 cards, create a treasure token and a 2/2 blue bird creature token with flying, and on top of that, put a flying counter on each creature you control without flying. I specifically like this card because that 3rd lore chapter could be game ending if we have an overwhelming force of elves that get flying and they have evasion. And if somehow you are overwhelmed with your opponent's creatures, we have another way of defending ourselves. So with that, we do have Galadriel Ambush. So with this card, it's absolutely great for an instant speed spell with 4 mana. You create X 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens where X is the number of attacking creatures, plus you will prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-elf creatures. So worst case scenario, you're facing another elf deck and they crater hoof you, but a good case scenario, you're facing a bunch of goblins and you make a lot of creatures off of those goblins and prevent the damage. So that's going to be a win. Again, if we do face an elf deck, you got to worry there. Another card I would like to suggest is Legolas Greenleaf. So if you have seen the movies, you're probably thinking to yourself, that's not Legolas, it has brown hair. Well, actually in the books, Legolas does have brown hair. In the movies, he does have blonde hair. So of course, being an archery, he does have reach, and on top of that, he can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. So we do have a lot of legendary creatures in here, so it's perfect. Whenever another legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Legolas Greenleaf. Whenever Legolas Greenleaf deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. That's simple. This does remind me of Gimli. Whenever another legendary creature enters the battlefield, you'll put a 1/1 counter on him. And obviously, Legolas is drawing and Gimli is ramping with treasure. I wish they made them partners. To be quite honest, I might just make a video with Gimli and Legolas as a Rule 0 partner. Anyways, enough with the side ranting. I do also want to discuss 2 reprints with Swan Song and Heroic Intervention. These are absolutely stunning arts. I absolutely love the Swan Song, and I'm so glad it got reprinted. Same with Heroic Intervention. They were getting really pricey at one point, so I'm glad to see that maybe the price will go down with them. So at the beginning of the video, I did discuss that we're going to go into a little bit of Elf Tribal in this deck, mainly because Galadriel wants Elves coming into the council, coming onto the battlefield, so that we could vote some more. So the first card I thought about was Elven Chorus, mainly because it's a great value piece. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library, and on top of that, creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. So if your Elves aren't mana dorks, they're mana dorks now, and that could tap for any color. That's just great value. And on top top of that, almost like having another card in your hand on the top of your library. I did also want to include a couple other elves like Priest of Titania and Marwyn the Nurturer, mainly because they'll tap for so much mana. Priest of Titania will tap for mana based off the amount of elves you have on the battlefield. Marwyn is based off of her power, and whenever an elf enters the battlefield, you'll put a 1/1 counter on her. Absolute great value town. Also, why not throw an Anthem in for elves with Leaf Crowned Visionary? So you can buff up your team, giving them +1/+1, and whenever you cast an elf spell, you may pay a green mana. If you do, you draw a card. This is just a value engine, getting cards left and right whenever you're casting elves, and that's going to be pretty easy paying that green mana cost because we'll have a lot of elves on the battlefield to pay for it. Another way we could buff up our elves or get some card draw is having Tribute to the World Tree. If they're small, you can put 2 1/1 counters on them. If their power is 3 or greater, you get a draw card. Absolute great value town like the other cards previously. I did also want to mention Celeborn, the husband of Galadriel herself. So whenever you attack with 1 or more elves, you scry 1. Whenever you scry, Celeborn the Wise gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each card looked while scrying this way. So this is very neat because this is going to dive into our next section, mainly with scrying. Scrying with elves is going to be so powerful in the deck, mainly because of some of the options we do have. So first up, I did want to discuss another version of Legolas. Legolas Counter of Kills. He does have reach. Whenever you do scry, if Legolas Counter of Kills is tapped, you may untap him. Do this only once each turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you put a 1/1 counter on Legolas. So it can untap itself, and on top of that, you put a 1/1 counter on Legolas when a creature dies. That's just great value and could get bigger over time. Another elf that scries a lot is Elrond, Master of Healing. Whenever you scry, put a 1/1 counter on each up to X target creatures, where X is the number of cards you looked while scrying this way. He also has the ability whenever a creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it becomes a target of a spell or an ability of opponent controls, you may draw a card. So yeah, he sure won't heal you, but he'll give you some card draw. I mean, to be quite honest, why is he called the Master of Healing when he's not even going to protect a creature that becomes target of an ability or a spell? But Elrond will for sure give you that card draw. I did want to bring your attention to another elf with Galadriel and Lothlorien. So the first ability you don't need to worry about so much. It's the second ability, which is absolutely incredible. Whenever you scry, you may reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card that is revealed this way, you may put it onto the battlefield. So of course, Simic, Ramp, obviously it's what it's going to do. But we do have a whole lot of scrying abilities, so we're going to be ramping so crazy with Galadriel. It's absolutely going to be insane. And you want to know what's better than scrying? I say card draw is way better than scrying. So why not put an Elgeth Crossroads Augur? So if you would scry a number of cards, you draw that many cards instead. Say for example you scry 3, and instead of scrying 3, you're going to draw 3 cards. That's absolute crazy value. So with that being said, I do want to thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on Galadriel, Elven-Queen, and in the new Precon deck, Elven Council. Also, let me know down below in the comments, is there any cards that I did miss that I should have talked about? However, I do feel like this version of Gandalf is absolutely incredible in the new Precon. I do feel like it's kind of a separate strategy other than Elves. That's why I decided to work with Galadriel instead. So with that being said, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.